من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وأعز المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, it's a privilege, it's an honor to be invited to speak in Masjid Zahra alayhi salam. As far as I know, the oldest Shia masjid in Australia, the pillar, the base where we grew up. It's my first time actually speaking Masjid Zahra since I was a child. I was in attendance. The masjid, it meant a lot. It meant religion, it meant faith. We only know Islam and Tashayyu'a to be what it is in Masjid Zahra alayhi salam until we grew up and we traveled to other countries and overseas. Inshallah, in the coming nights, in the coming weeks, if any of the brothers or the sisters have any advice, any opinions on topics, anything they'd like to hear, anything we could mention, I know a lot would come to mind straight away when I say any topics, especially now that it's happening in the news and the... But inshallah, shway, bit by bit we'll get there, inshallah. Today's Friday night, and it's mustahab to read Surah Al-Jumu'ah every Friday. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Jumu'ah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. It is as if they are donkeys carrying books. Asfar was paper that was held together in some sort of way. They say it was round or... كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. It wasn't until the 1900s that any sort of imagery, pictures, paintings was used in any advertisement. In 1921, an American editor, used the first image in his ad. It was just writing on bits of paper with writing, by such and such. So in 1921 he used his first image, picture. I don't know what it was or what the occasion was. It didn't really work. 6 years later he tried again. In his ad he used an image and he wrote underneath it that a picture paints 1,000 words. Of course, he had come up with the line, no one else had said it to him, and then he said it was Confucius, the Chinese, the famous Chinese man in history or historian or poet or whatever he was. And he said that Confucius came up with this quote, that a picture says 1,000 words. It became normal, and people started to use imagery, and Coca-Cola and Pepsi and what, and they started, even if it was black and white, hand-drawn images, because images portray meaning. And they do tell 1,000 words. The image of this mambar, for example, if I was to explain it, I would need more than 1,000 words to explain the image. That's if you understood. So to take a photo of the mambar would be much easier. It would get you to where you want to get very quickly, to your end destination. It's often hard to depict images in words, especially English. Those who speak Arabic, and you guys, I think all do, it's much easier to depict meaning in Arabic than it is in English. English is very dry. It's a very dry language. Michelangelo says that a man paints with his brain, not with his hand. So understand that you understand imagery, you understand pictures, you understand feeling, you understand moods, shapes, colors, they all come through your brain. They're seen by your eyes, they come through your brain, they give you a certain meaning, a certain feeling. Now novelists are a bit more talented. They write novels that make you feel happy, novels that make you feel sad, some make you feel anxious, some, I don't know. And they weave their words together in a way that it attracts you, that you listen, or you read intently and you want to continue reading. Once you get sick of reading, he's a bad novelist. He doesn't know what he's doing, or he's obviously terrible. A speaker, for example, if you're sick of me speaking in the first 2 minutes, you're not going to listen to the 15th minute. Inshallah, you guys will hold up for 15 minutes. In Arab culture, there was no imagery. Even the idols they used to worship in Mecca before Islam, they were imported idols. No such thing as imagery, physical imagery. But they were professionals at what? Poems, poetry. Weaving meaning together through poems. And they still have that same very power of poems. Even though we've become distant with Arabic, but Arabic poems still have the exact same power. أفاطم لو خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي. Don't even bother translating it, but it means, and it gets people moving. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran had to speak to the Meccans, to the Arabs in the way they would understand. He's not going to speak in Greek, He's not going to speak in Chinese. He's going to speak to the pre-Islamic pagan Arabs in their own language, in their own meaning, in something they can understand, something they can assimilate with, they can feel with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses many different types of linguistic ideas in the Holy Quran to portray the meaning of faith, the meaning of Islam, the meaning of Tawheed, storytelling, dialogue in the Holy Quran, short stories, proverbs or short proverbs, and depiction. And here's what I want to get to. Depiction. Tamthil, mathal. What's a mathal? We started our discussion. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. It is as if those who are carrying the Torah كمثل الحمار. It is as if they are donkeys. This word مثل, تمثيل, ka. In Arabic you say هو كالحائط, he is like a wall. Or هو كالجبل, he is like a mountain. Ka. This kaf is a letter used before tamthil. Tamthil is a way of depicting images in Islam, in Arabic as we said. Tamthil is of three kinds. Number one, of a model, like a maths equation. You tell me, give me any equation you want, and then I probably won't understand it from first go. So what do I say? أعطيني مثل. Give me an example. And you say, 11 times 5 is 55. That's a mathal, ka, you've given me a mathal. That's the first type of example. The second type of example is a similarity. Such is as such. Muhammad, any Muhammad there, ka Ali, is as Ali. And subhanallah, Muhammad nafsu Ali. Muhammad ka Ali, Zayd ka Amr, ka. When you say ka, it is as if he is he. If I know the brother's brother, for example, كأنه خيو. Even in Amiyya, in classical Arabic, spoken Arabic, we use it. Ka. These are two of the meanings. The third meaning is a depiction, and that's the meaning I want, which is the meaning found in Proverbs. كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. If you want to depict a man who is not, to say the least, going to benefit from his teachings, from his learnings, you say this man is as a donkey, or is like a donkey, who carries asfar, who carries books on his shoulders. We're not saying the man's a donkey. We're not saying the people of the Torah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't saying the people of the Torah are donkeys, no. He's saying they are as donkeys. It is as if they are donkeys. Because no matter how long this donkey carries things on his back, if we get this entire maktaba, this entire library, and we put it on this donkey's back, and this donkey walks for hundreds of years with it on his back, he's going to stay being a donkey. He's not going to learn to become a human. He's not going to become an intellectual. He's not going to build a civilization. He's not going to come down with words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not going to get on a pulpit and speak. He stays a donkey. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوا كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. So the type of meaning, the type of tamthil we want, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses, that we are trying to get a grasp of, is this, is the tashbih, if you want. Something is like something else. Now I'll give several examples of this tamthil in the Holy Quran. Example number 1. مثل الذين. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala either uses the word مثل or the letter ka to clarify what kind of meaning I'm giving or what I'm trying to do for you to understand, O people. مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا. Those who take other than the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the a'da, the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hypocrites, call them what you will, as their awliya, as their friends, as their allies, as their partners. كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا. It is like a spider building a web. Hold a second, what's a spider building a web? What's a web for? We all know the spider web. أوهن من بيت العنكبوت. If you're going to take a look at all different creatures and animals, and look at all of their homes and their houses and their some, for example, live underground in holes. Others live on the tops of trees. Others live inside logs and inside. The weakest of weak, the weakest of homes, of defenses, is the spider web. Because no matter how thick you build that web, it's going to be penetrated very quickly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who take the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their friends or as their allies, it is as if they have taken, a spider is building a web. كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا. So there is no need, no matter how hard you try, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, from the very end, there is no way these people will protect you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To depict this image to an Arab in Arabia at the time, or even now, for someone who has basic knowledge of Arabic grammar, Arabic literature, it's easier than saying these 1,000 words. If you take a house, this house is made up of threads. These threads, no matter how much you accumulate thread upon thread, there is no... It gets boring. And it doesn't quite get the image across. These threads. كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا. Done, finished. It is like a spider building a web. This web will continue to be a web no matter what you try. Often, when we see images of Karbala, for example, of the Holy Prophet, of Badr, of Uhud, it doesn't quench this thirst you've got. Every single one of us sees, for example, depicts the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in his head in a certain way. And I'm sure there's no two ways that equal each other or look like each other. Why? Because it's something you didn't see with your own two eyes. It was something that was depicted, something that was told to you through words, and then you wove this image in your mind. Therefore, when you see a reenactment of Karbala, a reenactment of Ashura, it doesn't quench your thirst, it doesn't hit the spot. It's different to what you imagined. When you see a reenactment of the Battle of Khaybar, it's different to this Ali ibn Abi Talib that you've, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, that you've pictured in your head. Therefore, to bring images closer, they use tamthil. I'll keep stressing the tamthil. Why? We'll get to it in a second. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's height was as if. The color of his skin was ka. So this kaf of tamthil, there is no other way they would have depicted any other image. So there is no way, if it were not for this linguistic tamthil at the time, would we have gained any sort of knowledge to the characteristics of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and others, and other important aspects in Islam. A second ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. مثل الذين ينفقون مثل الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله كمثل حبة أنبتت 7 سنابل في كل سنبلة 100 حبة والله يضاعف لمن يشاء. Inside every single one of us is this little businessman. Everyone's got a small businessman inside them, even if they don't do business. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when mentioning the doing of khair, the doing of good, the paying of charity to the Muslims, he could have mentioned it just slightly and moved on. But for it to go through, for it to go home, for you to memorize, for you to actually encompass this into your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a tamthil, gave a mathal. He says, he who pays charity, مثل الذين ينفقون. And nafaqa is not just what you spend. Anything you give. It's called infaq, nafaqa. ينفقون في سبيل الله. So this nafaqa, this giving has to be in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First of all, niyyah. If your intention is, as we say in Arabic, mza'za, no matter how much you give, I don't think it will make a difference. Or no matter how small, if your intention is straight and right. مثل الذين ينفقون في سبيل الله. Those who give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, كمثل حبة. It is as if they are a grain of rice, a grain of wheat, a grain of barley. It is as if they are a grain. أنبتت سبع سنابل. If you put this grain in the ground and you let it grow and you give it water, it will give 7 flowers, or those sumbula, the top of the wheat thing that's full of little grains. أنبتت سبع سنابل. It will grow with something that has 7 partials to it. في كل سنبلة. In every single one of these is 100 grains. So 1 is 7 times 100. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to you, if you give charity in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will gain 700-fold. Now the small businessman in every level, especially Lebanese, we've got businessmen. He's going to think, what? Alright, so I'll give 10, that'll be 700 times 10. It's good. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply it if He wills. Depending on your intention, depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's seeing of your good actions, your good deeds. There was no riya involved, no showing off. وَاللَّهُ يُضَاعِفُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. From the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, min rahmat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His grace, from His mercy, did He give us the most perfect of examples of mathal? Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salam. فالحمد صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. When something is described to you, you can picture it. But when something is given to you in flesh and blood, it obviously hits the spot much more, as we said. When Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi, Ali ibn Abi Talib, says, أنا القرآن الناطق. I am the walking, talking, speaking, moving Quran. If we were to read Islam in a book and flip through pages, we'd get some of it, we'd get the gist of some of it, but we wouldn't get the whole thing because it's dry. The Holy Quran is Quran, but it is dry, it is samit, it is silent. You must read, you must actually go and learn Arabic and then learn tafsir and read several tafsir and then try to understand and try to memorize to gain. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, before someone makes an accusation now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hasan, Imam al-Hussein, Sayyid al-Zahra alayhi salam, they are the walking, talking mathal of Quran, of Islam, of what we should be like, what we should aspire to be like. Is that not mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I'm a woman, I work. I am a man, I work. I am a child. There's a lesson for every single one of us in the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Whether you're a child, you're a woman, you're a man, you're a teenager, you're in prison, you are free, you are hungry, you are full, We had some imams that lived in poverty. We had some imams that were extremely wealthy. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Wallah inni aktharu ahl al-Madinati malan. Wallah, I am the most wealthy man in Medina. He wasn't showing off. The Imam was in a dialogue with someone and they said, so and so will give me such and such if I go with them, the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The Imam said, I'll give you more. Stay. This method, this example. They led us by example. Not just do we have the Holy Quran, we had their examples that we were led by. Imam al-Hujjah salamullahi ta'ala alayhi is an example. So what's our job? What's our taklif? We also hear the word taklif. This job, this task allocated to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's our taklif? Asr al-ghayba. I'm sorry I'm being very general in my talk tonight, but it's the first time I meet you guys, first time you meet me. Inshallah, with time, إذا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rad, and we remain from those alive, we'll get into more detail and more topics if you guys would like that are with nitty-gritty details. The Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam did their part, and we learned this from the seerah. Now it's our turn. And this is what I want to bring you guys to. It's our turn as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam to be walking, talking Ahlul Bayts. كونوا دعاة, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم. Be du'at, a da'wah. Our Sunni brothers use this term a lot. They call the sheikhs that preach, similar to what I'm doing now, as a da'iyah. He is a caller who calls people to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imam says, كونوا دعاة, be those callers, لنا, to Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, to the teachings of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, to the lifestyle of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, to the Islam of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, بغير ألسنتكم, not using your tongues. A picture, we started with, paints 1,000 or says 1,000 words. Your actions are much more than a picture. When people are watching me and they know for a fact that I'm of the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad and I do a good act, I'm not just given ajr and thawab and merits because of this good act. If I'm doing it with the intention to depict and to relay the Shia as being the most perfect of creations, in turn, not relaying myself, not showing myself, in turn this person may get a good image of the Tashayyu' and may build himself at least some sort of background knowledge about these Shia and the way they act. You're getting double. It's not just the good action, it's the intention of the good action. If I'm on a minbar, for example, I'll give an example to myself. كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم. If I'm on a minbar and I come down to pray, and I know for a fact some non-Shia or non-Muslim or non-followers of the Ahlul Bayt, whatever they may be, has their eyes on me, and I've got a tissue, I've got the cold, would I just throw it? Even if it was in my intention, and personally what I do, I throw tissues. But because this person is looking, because this person is taking lessons, because this person is painting himself an image of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, refrain. That's not a it's not showing off. It's stopping. A whole lot of questions being asked about Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim salam. Be as such, the Imam says, Imam Sadiq goes on to say, be as such that when somebody sees you, and from a distance, يقول رحم الله جعفر ibn Muhammad. May Allah have mercy on Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. His name was Ja'far ibn Muhammad. May Allah have mercy on Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. فقد أدب شيعته. Ta'deeb means not just once. You don't put someone in line once. It happens on a regular basis where it becomes their third nature to do things the right way. This upbringing of the Shia, act in such a way that when somebody sees you, they send their mercies and their blessing on Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. I don't have to go into detail, but our circles are not very good circles, especially in the afternoon and evening, and there's food and there's argili and there's wallah, it's the tastiest chewing gum you ever tasted in your life, and that's backbiting. If we don't have someone to talk about, we'll make up something. Wallah, Sayyid, I haven't seen anything right or wrong about him. I'll come up with something. I didn't like the way he looked. He looked at me in a way that I thought that he was. Then the other person will sit next to me and say, haram, ma'attar. It's a poor thing. And then he'll go on. And he'll become. And this hatik, this destroying of the image, is this part of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم. It's our job, brothers and sisters, and I think I've taken too much of my time, I'm not sure. It's our job, brothers and sisters, it's our taklif to not just be, in Arabic they say, مؤثر ومتأثر. He who moves the masses, he who changes things, he who causes a reaction, and he who reacts. It's our job not to be antennas to carry the reaction of something else, or power lines to carry the energy of someone else. La. It's our job to be the actual energy provider, the internet provider, the gas provider. That which acts and the rest react with it. When I see something wrong, when I see haram being committed, when I see a brother being destroyed behind his back, or a sister for that matter, when I see a brother walk into the masjid, the least I could do is not stare at him and make him feel out of place. And I was just told that by several brothers as we walked in. They said, I've stolen this quote from someone, it's not mine. But he says, I feel welcome at a gym. I feel more welcome at a gym than I do in a mosque. The masjid is mine when I come for a few times. Then I sit down, I look. So and so Shujebu, what brought him here? And so, he was off the rails. Baba, he was off the rails, that's fine. He's on the rails now. Or he's at least on the rails for these next 15 minutes. Leave him. Let him worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe he'll get into a habit. Maybe he'll bring a friend with him to the masjid. Rahmatullah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's rahmah, Allah's blessing, Allah's mercy, is so big it doesn't finish. Dua Jawshan al-Kabir in Shahr Ramadan. It's so big it doesn't finish. So if Allah gives you infinite rahmah, an open check, a credit card, an Amex of rahmah, it's not one Amex less, because He's the one that creates it for the next guy coming. No matter how much you take of God's mercy and blessing, there's still enormous amounts to go around. The masjid. The first place I can act as a mathal of the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, or a follower of the Ahlul Bayt, is in the masjid. Is to at least smile in the face of a brother that comes in, or a sister. Al-ibtisamatu sadaqah. A smile is sadaqah, is charity. I'm poor. I'm not carrying my wallet. I don't have money to pay charity in the morning. Smile at a Muslim. It's mustahab to start your day with sadaqah. Sadaqah tadfa'u al-bala. It pushes bala. It tuzid fi al-rizq. Your sustenance may grow. It's mustahab to start the day with a sadaqah, yes, and also smile. Why is it we take part of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and then leave the rest? Man nassaba nafsahu, the hadith says, I just remembered it now. Man nassafa nafsahu linnasi imama. He who appoints himself to the people as an imam. Just talking to myself basically now, because I'm the only one with a microphone. فَلْيَبْدَأْ بِتَعْلِيمِ نَفْسِهِ. Let him start with teaching himself. Before coming to teach others, let me come and teach myself. Before I give someone, for example, in Salat al-Jama'ah today, I've picked up on several of the elder men have this thing, when they do sujood in prostration, their feet don't actually touch the ground. That sujood is batil. There's 100 different ways about coming about it. I could stand there, Hajj, Habibi lek, salatak batle. Your prayer is void. Or I can even say it in an Iraqi accent too, to an Iraqi brother. But if that's hatik, that's destroying a mu'min. That's just like talking about someone behind his back. That's just like backbiting. There's a certain way in dealing with things. There's a certain empathy Islam taught us. There's a certain way of man kasara mu'min, he who breaks a mu'min. Breaking could be in any way. Could be in backbiting, could be in one's face, could be in just a smile. I see the brother praying, I smirk and I look away in a masjid. He's going to think, there's something wrong with my salah. The Sheikh just smirked. Yeah? Man kasara mu'min fa'alayhi jabruh. He must mend him. He's got a broken leg. That doesn't end there. If I laugh, I have to come back and say, sorry Hajj. It shouldn't happen to begin with. I'm sorry. Because I made fun of you. Then the narration continues on. وَمَنْ جَبَرَ جُبِرْ. And he who mends his brothers and sisters, makes them feel better. Jubir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him feel better. He's not more merciful than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not more generous than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man jabara jubir. Don't you want to be one of those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala biyujbur, who mends them? Trust me, on the day of judgment, you're going to be heart rate going, I don't know how many 100 kilometers an hour, your feet tapping together, teeth grinding. You're going to want someone to make you feel better at least. You drive past the cops and he looks at you and smiles. Alhamdulillah, it's not me he's after. He's not going to book me. That's jabr. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل. Have we stopped? Have we stopped recording? البخيل البخيل من سمع باسمي ولم يصلي عليه. Stingiest of stingy is he who hears my name and doesn't recite a salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. الصلاة, just a narration. تأكل الذنوب eats sin كما يأكل النار الحطب. Just like when you light up a fire now, it's winter, it's cold, and it eats away. Just keep reciting salawat. There's no need. It's not because the Sheikh if he's good or not good. I'm the worst person on earth. The recitation of salawat is a good habit to get into. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.